Geography NCERT Class 9 Contemporary India Part 1 Chapter 2. The title for this chapter is Physical Features of India, and it is one of the most important chapters in this entire textbook because the physical and political features of India are the most basic and foundational concepts if you really want to have a strong grip over Indian geography. You must remember that geography is all about maps. So we'll learn all the concepts, learn all the important things through maps. Alright, let's begin. Now you must be wondering how much physical diversity do we have in India? There are the Himalayas, so many mountains, there is the Thar Desert, there are the peninsula, so much physical diversity. Nothing happened in a flash. Everything happened gradually over millions and billions of years because of the movement of the plates, the tectonic plates, and because of their movement, so many physical features were formed over years. And there is one theory, very important theory, that summarizes everything, all the important events of the world over millions and billions of years. This theory is known as theory of plate tectonics. So it is really important as there are several plates in the entire world, and the movement of these plates, oceanic plates and the continental plates. So if we look at these plates, these are nothing but fractures in the Earth's crust. Let's say if this is a fracture and this is a continental plate and this is an oceanic plate. So this fracture that has been caused, this gap between the plates has resulted in various features being formed and has resulted in various phenomena such as earthquakes. They have caused volcanoes, volcanic eruptions. They have caused young fold mountains to lift up and block mountains. So these are some of the features that have emerged because of the plate tectonics, because of plate movements. So if we summarize the plate tectonics theory, there are three important plate movements. The first one is when two plates, let's say these are the two plates, if they converge, if they move towards each other, and this is the gap that is being filled and they move and they strike each other, then this movement is known as convergent movement, convergent plates. This is also known as destructive plates. Destructive because when they strike each other, they cause earthquakes, they cause volcanic eruptions, and they cause young full mountains to lift up. So this is known as the destructive plates. Right. The next one is when two plates move away from each other. Now, in this case, we'll call them divergent plates. Divergent boundaries or divergent plates, these are also known as constructive boundaries and constructive plates. The third one is a phenomenon when they neither go away or come towards each other. In fact, they rub against each other in opposite direction or in the same direction. So this friction that has been caused, this friction and this phenomenon is known as transforming boundaries. Transform boundaries and plates. So this is a phenomenon, as far as I remember, this is the Californic plate, California. The California Bay is where the plates are rubbing against each other. Divergent plates are where the block mountains are formed. And these are where the convergent plates are where the young fold mountains are formed and the volcanic eruptions take place. So let us locate these plates in the world map so that we have a better understanding of the entire theory of plate tectonics. Right, so this is the world map with the plate margins and the tectonic plate boundaries. Now the plates that you must remember are the Eurasian plate, Pacific plate, North American plate, South American plate, African plate, and the Indo-Australian plate. Now this is really important. This map is really important. If you're giving any exam or you're preparing for an exam, you must be able to draw this map and draw the boundaries of the tectonic plates. This would really help you fetch those extra marks in any exam. So as you can see in this map, the destructive plates are the ones which are marked with a line with dots, and the simple lines are the constructive plates, these ones. Right. So this region is really important. You must remember this. This is the Pacific Ring of Fire. Right. The Pacific Ring of Fire. Why do we call it the Pacific Ring of Fire? The reason is that this region is prone to high amount of active volcanic eruptions. So there are a lot of volcanoes present here, and these volcanic eruptions, the highest number of active volcanoes are present in this region, and this is prone to a lot of earthquakes, tsunami. As you can see, Japan is here and is sitting on a plate boundary, a destructive plate boundary. And another region which is really important for us is this one, where the Himalayas are sitting. So the Himalayas are there sitting on a destructive plate boundary, and as most of you must be knowing that the Indian peninsula struck the Eurasian plate, and this was the reason why the Himalayas uplifted the young fold mountains of India. And uh, the reason, because the Himalayas sit on the destructive plate boundary, that is why we read in the newspapers and we hear in the news that over the last many years a lot of earthquakes have occurred in Nepal, in Uttarakhand in India, and the entire northern region of India is prone to earthquakes. This is the reason why there are a lot of earthquakes. Now you know, and these are the important plate boundaries and the important regions that we must remember. Right, so let us understand the phenomenon of the upliftment of the Himalayan mountains in detail. So, as you must be knowing, earlier the Indo-Australian plate was part of the Gondwana land, which constituted of South Africa, then South America, and Indo-Australian plate. Right. So, as the convectional currents, they broke the Gondwana land into various subsequent plates, and the Indo-Australian plate was shifted towards the northeast region. It started flowing towards the Eurasian plate, as we saw in the earlier map. So what happened was that this is the Eurasian plate, and this was the Indian peninsula. So this moved towards the Eurasian plate and struck the Eurasian plate, and then the Himalayas were uplifted. So these were the Himalayas which formed later. And as the Himalayas were formed, as if we can see here, if this was the Eurasian plate, and when the Indian peninsula, this was the Tethys Sea, and when it struck the Eurasian plate, the Indian peninsula, this is the Indian peninsula, the Indo-Australian plate, and when it struck the Eurasian plate, the Himalayas uplifted here. Now these Himalayas, when they uplifted from the Tethys Sea, there was a huge valley that was formed in this region. Now, this valley was filled up by the rivers flowing from the Himalayas. The monsoon started, and these monsoon they poured rain on the Himalayas, and there were rivers that melted in the summers, and soon they became perennial rivers, and which are the lifeline of the country. And these rivers brought sediments with them, and other rivers in the peninsular region, they brought sediments, and these sediments over millions of years, they filled up this valley, and soon eventually we saw the alluvial plains, the alluvial north plains of India, the northern plains, the alluvial plains. They are rich in alluvial soil, very fertile because they are fairly new compared to the peninsular region. The peninsular region has stable and hard rocks because these are very old, and this is how the Himalayas uplifted. Now, since we are talking about mountains, let us quickly locate the important mountain ranges in the Indian map. Now, when you're looking at mountains, you not only have to remember the names and location, but also the respective location from each other with respect to each other. How which mountain range is in the north, which is in the south, comparative to each other. Now, let us start with the Pamir Knot. This is the Pamir Knot. The Pamir Knot is very important as all the Yangful mountains start from here. As you can see, the Kunlun Shan, which are there in Tibet, the Hindu Kush, the Suleiman Range, all start from the Pamir Knot. This is the knot that actually ties all the mountain ranges. The Himalayas start from here, and the first one is the Karakoram Range. Karakoram Range. Then we have the Ladakh Range. Next is the Zaskar. So I hope you know that the Himalayas are divided into Trans Himalayas, Greater Himalayas, and Lesser Himalayas or the Shivaliks. So Karakoram and the Ladakh range are Trans Himalayas, and the Zanskar range. So these are the Greater Himalayas, which is the longest range starting from North India to Northeast, and these are the Shivaliks. Right. So other important ranges are these are the Aravalli Hills. They start from Delhi and they move towards going through Rajasthan. They move towards Gujarat. These are the Vindhya Ranges in the Peninsula. Satpura Ranges. You must remember that Vindhya is to the north of Satpura. Very important. These are the Western Ghats. Western Ghats, and these are the Eastern Ghats. Very important. Right, so these are the Northeast Mountains, the Patkai Boom, Purvanchal Mountains. So these are three important mountains in Meghalaya, which you must remember. They are named after the tribes that live in these areas: Garo, Khasi, and Jaintia. So these are the names of three tribes that live in these areas, in these mountains, and that is why these mountains are known as Garo, Khasi, and Jaintia. All right, so these were the important mountain ranges of India. Now we are discussing about the major physiographic divisions. As you can see, the Himalayan mountains, the northern plains, the Peninsular Plateau, the Indian desert coastal plains, and the island groups. So let's go back to the map we just saw and let's try and locate these physiographic divisions. The first one, as we just discussed, the Himalayan mountains. This is the northern plain. This is the Deccan Plateau. The coastal plains are these ones, and these are the island groups: Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep. And this is the Great Indian Desert, the Thar Desert. Coming back to the physiographic divisions, the first one is the Himalayan mountains. The Himalayas, geologically young and structurally fold mountains, stretch over the northern borders of India. These mountains run in a west to east direction from the Indus to the Brahmaputra. The Himalayas represent the loftiest and one of the most rugged mountain barriers of the world. They form an arc which covers a distance of 2,400 kilometers, and the width vary from 400 kilometers to in Kashmir to 150 kilometers in Arunachal Pradesh. The altitude variations are greater in the eastern half than in the western half. The Himalaya consists of three parallel ranges as we just discussed: the Trans Himalayas, the Greater Himalayas also known as Himadri, and the Shivaliks. Some important points about the Himalayas are that they are asymmetrical in nature. Asymmetrical. The second one is that the core of the Himalayas are made of granite. The third one is that they are perennial in nature, which means that they are snowbound for the entire cycle of 12 months. That is why we have perennial rivers flowing from the Himalayas. Right. So another thing is that when we talk about the Shivaliks, two important ranges that we must remember are the Pir Panjal and the Dhauladhar. The Himalayas are very famous for their hill stations. Also, we must remember these mountain ranges. So, if you can remember all of them, great. But if you can't remember all of them, you must remember the ones that are there in India. So Kanchenjunga is the highest mountain peak in India, and the other ones are Nanga Parbat, and the third one is Nanda Devi, and then Kamet, Namcha, Barwa. So you must remember these five, at least these five, the top five mountain ranges of India. And if you can remember all the mountain ranges, the top five, top 10, it would be amazing. Now we come to the second physiographic division, which is the northern plains. Now the northern plains are really important because it is where the important rivers such as Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra, they flow through the northern plains. And since it is fairly new, as we just discussed, that it was formed by sediments that were deposited by these rivers, it has huge amounts of alluvial plains. And the alluvial soil is very fertile, and it also has a favorable climate. That is why it is highly productive for crops, and this is why the entire northern plain is highly populated. It is highly populated because the soil over the ages has been very fertile and very productive. That is why the population has been high in this region. You must be knowing that Uttar Pradesh, where the most amount of alluvial plain is present, is highly populated. It has more than around 20 crores of population at present, according to the 2011 census. That is why the northern plains are very important. Right, so some concepts related to the northern plains. The first one is the definition of tributaries and distributaries. So if this is the river and these are smaller streams of rivers joining this river, these are its tributaries. Second case would be when a river splits into smaller streams of rivers that go away from it are its distributaries. Right. Next is the concept of doab. So this word is split into two parts. Do means two in Hindi and ab is river. So river or its catchment area. So similarly, Punjab means the land of five rivers, the five rivers of the Indus River system. All right. Next is the concept of Bhabar, Terai, Bhangar, and Khadar. So, as the Himalayas, the rivers they descend from the Himalayas, and the source being the Himalayas, they move towards its penultimate destination. It goes through a lot of phases. So, these phases are broken into four parts. The first one is the Bhabar. So Bhabar is this region where in the lesser Himalayas you must have noticed there are a lot of stones and the river flow has reduced, and this river eventually emerges in this region, which is the Terai. So this river from underground it emerges in this region. This region is known as the Terai region, and it is a swampy marshy land with a lot of grass, and this river then flows to the next phase, which is Bhangar. So Bhangar is full of alluvial soil and very fertile. The forests had been cleaned in this area and a lot of agricultural land is present. So the river now flows to the Bhangar region. After this comes the Khadar region. So this river eventually leads to the new alluvial region, new alluvial soil. This is the Khadar region. So the flow of the river, the sequence is Bhabar, then Tarai, then Bhangar, and then Khadar. So you must remember this sequence. This is how the river flows from its origin to the penultimate destination. Now we come to the third physiographic division, which is the Peninsular Plateau. Now we have already discussed how the Peninsular Plateau collided with the Eurasian plate and how it formed. It has hard igneous rocks, crystalline and igneous and metamorphic rocks. Crystalline, igneous, and metamorphic rocks. Right. Next important thing that we need to understand about the Peninsula Plateau is that it has a lot of plateaus. So it has the Malwa Plateau, Chota Nagpur Plateau, very important. Then we have the Bundelkhand, the Baghelkhand. So these are the plateaus that are there. Some important rivers in this region are the Narmada, Tapi, and then we have Damodar and various other rivers. So these are the important rivers that we must know. And this is the oldest region of India, and this is the hardest rock region, and the intensity of agriculture is less compared to the northern plains. But this is an important region of the country because it has a lot of minerals present in this region. Now, when we talk about the Western and the Eastern Ghats, and first when we talk about the Western Ghats, they are continuous in nature. The Western Ghats are continuous in nature. Also, they are higher in height than the Eastern Ghats, and they run parallel to the western coast of India, and they can only be passed through the proper passes that are made to cross the mountains. And when we talk about the Eastern Ghats are lesser in height than the Western Ghats. They are not continuous; they are discontinuous, and since they are discontinuous because they are dissected by a lot of rivers that drain into the eastern coast of India, and the highest peak of the Eastern Ghats is Mahendragiri, and the highest of the Western Ghats is Anaimudi. So these are the important points about the Western and the Eastern Ghats. Right, so let us look at the Indian desert. The Indian desert lies towards the western margins of the Aravalli Hills. It is an undulating sandy plain covered with sand dunes, also known as Burchans, near the Jaisalmer area on the Indo-Pakistan border. It has a very low rainfall, below 150 millimeter per year. It has arid climate with low vegetation cover. Luni is the only large river in the region. It has one of the largest catchment areas in India. When we come to the coastal plains, so let us draw the coastal plains of India. Right. So this is the west coast, this is the east coast. The west coast is divided into three parts. The first one is the Konkan coast. The middle one is the Kannada coast. And the southern part is known as the Malabar coast. When we look at the eastern coastal plains, the northern part is known as Northern Sarkars. Northern Sarkars. The southern part is known as the Coromandel coast. Right, so this is how the western and eastern coastal plains are divided. Now the last one is the island groups of India. We've already located them in the map. Lakshadweep and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Alright, so these were the physiographic regions of India. Now let's look at some exercise, some questions that can really help us understand the concepts. The first one is a landmass bounded by sea on three sides is referred to as, the answer is peninsula. The second one, the mountain ranges in the eastern part of India forming its boundary with Myanmar are collectively called as, the answer is Purvanchal. The third question is that the western coastal strip south of Goa is referred to as, we're talking about south of Goa. So the answer would be Kannad. The fourth one is the highest peak in the eastern Ghats is, in the eastern Ghats, the highest is Mahendragiri. Alright, so this was Contemporary India Part 1, NCERT Class 9, Chapter 2. So this is it for this video. The PDF notes for this video are available on the Civil Coursify Android app for free. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, download the Civil Coursify Android app, and follow us on Facebook and Telegram. Links are available in the description as well as comment section. Till then, thank you and take care.